comes a new challenger!
Welcome to Challenger TCG, back again for another Riftbound video. I'm here with Alexander the Greatest again. My name is Villionaire, and we're going to be giving you a Riftbound Origins set review. We're going to be reviewing every card in the set and giving you a rating 1 through 10.
And those ratings are going to be given in a vacuum. And pretty much what that means is they're going to be kind of given just based on how they read, not necessarily how they interact with specific other cards. So you might see cards on here that we give a 4 out of 10 and you go, wait, that card's really good in this specific deck, but it's not actually good anywhere else. And that's why it got a 4 out of 10.
Okay, and starting us off, we are going to be starting with the Fury cards. These are the red cards in the game, and we're going to start with Proving Grounds. This is Annie, Fiery. She is a champion unit costing 5 energy and 1 Fury power. She has a might of 4, and her ability reads, your spells and abilities deal 1 bonus damage. What do you think, Alex?
This card's a bit understated. A 4 might for 5 seems a little on the smaller side, not egregiously understated. I think you really need like a deck that's holding a lot of spells for this to be good, because this is a very, very slow card. It does nothing when it comes in play. It's just a very, very slow. It almost feels like sort of like a gear almost, but it can occasionally attack. But you're not going to want to attack with this much. Because you're not going to want to leave her exposed to removal, because this is just supposed to be turning all your spells on. Ultimately, I could see this seeing play, but I don't think it's that great. I would probably give this card like a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Annie Fiery is pretty understated, especially for costing a power. There are things that are just cheaper that have the same amount of power. She's also just a unit that, like Alex said, needs to stay in the back line, and you don't really want to be exposing her to battlefields, so it takes a while for her to get some value. There is a lot of damage cards in red, but probably not enough that you're going to be consistently getting value out of this, so I think a 5 is a fine rating. Give her a 5. Alright, and next up, we have Firestorm, a 6 energy, 1 power spell that reads, deal 3 to all enemy units at a battlefield. What do you think?
Yeah, so I don't really see this card being all that great. It deals 3 damage to all enemy units at a battlefield, but like there's already better stuff in this color that does kind of something similar. It costs 6. That's a lot, I mean, to be paying for this. And we also see the way a lot of people play is they're not really overstuffing battlefields. It's rare that you're going to get more than maybe a 2-for-1 with this, and they're just already things that do that better in this color. Ultimately, I don't think this card is all that great. Maybe in the future when there's a deck that's like trying to stuff these battlefields a lot, but even then, I imagine there'll be a more efficient answer at that point. I would give this card maybe like a 2 out of 10.
Yeah, I agree. I do not think this card is very good. If it said all battlefields, if it was at least maybe action or reaction speed, this card might have been something, but basically taking your whole turn off to maybe 2-for-1, as Alex said, because people are not stuffing battlefields. It's just not really worth it right now. I'll go ahead and probably give the card I'll give it a 3.
Probably a little more fair than my rating, too. 2 might be a little low. That might be a little too disrespectful, but I don't know. It just doesn't seem great to me.
No, that's fair. All right, and we now have Incinerate. For 2 energy, this is an action card, meaning you can play it on your turn or in showdowns. And it deals 2 damage to a unit at a battlefield.
It just, again, there are still just already more efficient existing removal. This doesn't feel that great. Maybe if it was reaction, I could see like you could respond to like a buff of some sort and use it, but ultimately I don't see this card as being that good. Maybe if there were a deck that was like trying to abuse spell damage, like with the Annie we saw before, but ultimately I also don't think this card is that great, albeit it's a little bit better than the last one. I'll give this card a 3 this time around.
I think Incinerate is an okay removal. You are spending 2 to basically deal with a 2 power unit most times. But it doesn't hit at home, so it has to be at the battlefield. If it's some other cards that have assault or things like that, it's not going to work. So I do think the card is definitely better than the last one we saw. I'd probably give this card, say, like, give it a 4. Alright, and now the first card of the Origin set itself is Blazing Scorcher. This card is a dragon that costs 5 energy, it has 5 might, and for Accelerate you can pay an additional energy and Fury, and a Fury power, and have it enter ready.
So I think this card's actually pretty decent. It's not the worst thing in the world. Like, this is a card that I could definitely see getting played, especially in like some more like mid-rangey decks that are just kind of looking for a like kind of slightly bigger, above average Accelerate unit. It's got decent stats. I think this card's okay. I don't think it'll see play in a lot of decks, but I think it's good enough. I'd probably give this card a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, I think 5 is fine for this card. It's no power is pretty nice, and 5 for 5 is solid rate. Next up we have Brazen Buccaneer for 6 energy. This is a 5 might unit that says, as you play me, you may discard a card as an additional cost. If you do, reduce his cost by 2, making him essentially cost 4 energy. What do you think, Alex?
So one of the things I see in this card, I actually don't think like discarding a card to get a 5 for 4, like that's okay. That's fine. You're losing a card. What I see in this card though is a discard enabler. So when you do have, if they do print a density of cards that want to be discarded, that's what I see in this card, because those might be hard to come by. We don't know how many of those they're actually going to print. So when I look at a card like this, I see a lot of potential. I think just as it reads, this card is probably a 5 out of 10, but I see the potential in this card, and I see where it can get higher, and where it can just be like even maybe a centerpiece in some discard synergize like decks. But ultimately, I'd say at face value, this card is just a 5.
Yeah, I'd say it's right middle of the pack as well. 5 works for me. Next up we have Chemtech Enforcer. Chemtech Enforcer costs 2 energy, has 2 might, and has Assault 2, meaning he gets plus 2 might while he is attacking. When you play him, you discard 1 card. Again,
kind of the same as the last thing. Maybe it's a little bit better because it's a much bigger, earlier guy. It's effectively a 4 when it attacks. I think this card is actually a little bit better than the last one. Again, it just depends how much you're looking for discard. I say this is kind of more or less the same as the last card. The only downside to this one is that you have to discard to play it, whereas you don't have the option like the last one. Again, this is probably another 5 out of 10 card. It's fine. It's very good in aggressive decks. It's very good if you need a cheap discard enabler. I give this a 5.
Yeah, I'd say this card is pretty good, given that it's a turn 1 play that basically can run over most other turn 1 plays, almost guaranteed. This guy is always going to get you a point in the early game. But going down a card is, always going to be a downside. And unless you're playing it in a deck that does want to discard cards, then he's going to neg you a card just for playing him. So I think 5 is a fine rating. Next up we have Cleave for 1 energy. This is a spell that is action speed, and it gives a unit Assault 3 for the turn.
This card is excellent. I really like this card. I mean, it's kind of anything you want out of any sort of pump spell. It's action speed, so it is effectively fast. It does only work on the attack, but that's fine. You're getting +3 for 1, which is a very large number for that cost. I really like this card. I think this card's great. I'd probably give this card a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, Cleave is a great card. 1 for 3 is great rate. Most 2-drops are coming in at 2 power, so this is a 1-cost card that it's really easy to spend 1 mana and still be able to make efficient plays every turn. So this thing can just help you win battles that you shouldn't be able to win. And it is not like some of the other pump spells. It's not reaction speed, it is action speed, so that does hurt it just a tiny bit, but it's still a really great card. I think it's a solid 7 for sure. That's a great number. All right, next up we have Disintegrate for 4. This is an action speed spell, and it deals 3 damage to a unit at a battlefield. If it kills the unit, you get to draw 1.
This card's a little pricey for this effect, and we'll see later this effect already sort of exists in a better form. I think this card is okay. Like, it's definitely a card that I could see seeing play. Again, 4 is a pretty high price tag for an effect like this, especially since it has the requirement to actually make the kill to draw. Ultimately, though, if you just needed a high-density removal spell deck and you wanted those cards to replace themselves, I could see this card making its way in. I'd probably give this card... I say this card is probably a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, I think I'd give the card probably a 6. I think a removal spell is pretty good that draws a card. You always want to see that, but of course the draw is conditional. This is not something that you'll be able to cast and get a trade with and still get a draw. It has to actually finish the card itself, and with the way combat works in this game, that's not really you can't like send a guy in, deal damage to it, and then use Disintegrate to finish it off. So it is really conditional on getting that draw, and that's what kind of holds this card back. All right, next up we have Flame Chompers for 3 energy. This is a 3 might unit, or when you discard it, you can pay 1 red power to play it.
So like I said before, this is the kind of one of the discard cards that you're looking for. I think this card is excellent. It's exactly what you want. It doesn't cost you any resources to play this. If you discard it, it's just very good with any of those discard aggro synergy cards that we saw before. Any way that you can discard this card is just excellent. I would say this card is like a solid... The only thing really holding it back, I guess, is that you do need discard synergy in your deck, and it doesn't do anything outside of that. But given its stats, and for what it's worth, I think it's like a 6 out of 10. I think this is a good card.
You know, it's funny you say that, because back in the Runeterra days, I think we were talking about cards like this in the same way, where it's like, man, this card is so good, but it's not good by itself. You need to play it in a discard outlet. The card is still the same. It's really great if you have discard cards, but normally it's just a 3 for 3, which is still a fine rate. Doesn't cost you power or anything, so the stats are fine on the card, but you really do need that discard to get the full value. I'll give the card a 6 as well. Next up we have Get Excited for 2 energy and a red power. This is an action speed spell that reads discard 1, deal its energy cost as damage to a unit at a battlefield.
Man, look at how they massacred my boy. He was so good in Runeterra. What happened to this card? I mean, man. This card is still just fine. Like, I don't hate it by any means. It's like an okay removal, but you're effectively 2 for wanting to kill something. Maybe you're able to get something big, but the types of decks that are going to play something like this oftentimes are playing a lot of cheap units, because these are discard aggressive type strategies where they're okay with kind of burning their hand away. Now, I can see in the future where maybe there is a red control deck that just wants effectively a spot removal that is going to be able to just kill anything by pitching one of their bombs. And that's where I think that's the only thing that I think actually props this card up a little bit. But I'm going to say this card is a 5 out of 10. It has a lot of potential to get better. It's just the idea of discarding kind of contradicts with what you're trying to do with the control deck a lot of the time, where like you don't want to discard cards, but like how this card does get really good is discarding something big, like something costly, so you can kill something cheap.
Yeah, I think Get Excited is a good card for the discard matters decks. It's a good card for the big ramp decks, but it's just a little costly. The power is not that bad for removing something, but a power plus a card from your hand is a steep cost. And red really doesn't have a lot of ways to regain resources. So I think that I go ahead and give this card I'll give it a 6.
I will say in Runeterra, this card was like an 8 or 9. This card was incredible in Runeterra. So it's disappointing to see it fall from grace so hard.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it.
Next up, we have Hextech Ray for 1 energy and a Fury power. It is an action speed spell that deals 3 damage to a unit at a battlefield.
This card's excellent. I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. This is Lightning Bolt. Like this is just a great card. Yeah, I mean, this is premium removal. This is as good as it gets. We were just talking about how I can pay 4 to deal 3 to a guy to battlefield and draw 1 if it dies, or I can just pay 1. So, I mean, this card is just 10 times better than that. I'm going to say this card is like a solid, this is probably a solid, 8 out of 10, maybe. It does cost a power. That's, one downside, but, this card is really good. I would say this card's like a solid 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I think that the power cost is kind of steep for decks that can't afford it, but 1 for 3 is just a great rate. You're definitely trading up as far as resources go. It can only hit battlefields, but it is action speed, which is great. I think that 8 is a good rating. Next up, we have Legion Rearguard for 2 energy. This is a 2 might unit with Accelerate.
I mean, this card's great in my opinion. It's not even the stats. Like a 2 for 2 is fine. So you can play this guy raw just as like a 2/2 vanilla, but the fact that he is the upside of being Accelerate, and this is pretty much the cheapest Accelerate in the game right now, if I'm not mistaken. I think this guy's excellent. He's a great foot soldier, as his name would kind of imply. In any red deck. Big fan of this guy. I'd say he's just a 7 out of 10. Solid card.
Yeah, I like 7 for the rear guard. Super solid card.
Must be a million of them. Nope, just 1.
Next up, we have Magma Worm for 8 energy and 1 power. This is an 8 might unit that breeds other friendly units into ready.
So I've seen these cards before in various different card games I've played, and cards like these are never usually played outside of some sort of combo deck. But when they do get played, it's usually part of a very good combo, albeit this is a little expensive. I think just raw by himself, this card is just very okay. But I see this is another card where I see the potential, the wheels are kind of turning in my head of all the things that this could potentially enable in the future. I don't think it's there right now, but just based on what I know about these types of effects, I'm gonna give this a bit higher of a rating than what it might actually deserve in its current state. Just based on the text alone, and say I think this card's a solid 6.
Yeah, Magma Worm is a little expensive. Being able to come in ready is pretty nice, but it is really late in the game when you're getting that effect. I think I'm gonna go ahead and give him a 5. All right, next up we have Noxus Hopeful for 4 energy and 4 might. This unit has Legion, which is if you've played another card this turn, it costs 2 less.
I think this guy's pretty good, honestly. Like, he's great in any of these aggressive decks that are just playing multiple guys a turn. Honestly, I'm a big fan of this guy. He's just kind of like a cheap, beefy guy. He's kind of just what you're looking for in those types of aggro decks. Again, this guy's probably a solid 6 out of 10.
Yeah, I think that the stats, if you're paying 2 for this, stats are insane. So, like, say you're going on, like, turn 2, when you have 4 mana, you could just play 2-cost card, and then you can play this guy, just adding a ton of power to your board. It's really powerful. It's really aggressive, which is what Legion decks are trying to do. So I think that I like this card a lot. I'm going to go ahead and give him a 7. Next up, we have Pouty Poro for 2 energy. This is a 2 might unit with Deflect, which is your opponent must pay a power to choose him with a spell or ability.
Unlike if you've played other card games, they usually have this line of text, but usually it says it can't be targeted by other abilities or spells. This one just says they have to pay a power. So normally this card would be good if you could play some sort of Boggle deck, which is just like a deck that would put a bunch of like equips or pumps or ways to make him bigger. But because you only have to pay 1 power to target it, I don't really think this guy's all that great. He's only got 2, so he's not even that big. So even if you did power him up, they could still just kill him pretty easily unless you made him like huge. And at that point, there's plenty of other fish in the sea that you could kind of use that on. So ultimately, I don't think this card is very good. I'd give it a 3 out of 10.
Yeah, if you're hurting for 1-drops or you're in a very spell-heavy format, this guy might be a little bit better. Sorry, I guess 2-drops in this game. Turn 1 plays. But if you're not in a spell-heavy format, he is just a pretty regular 2 for 2. And so maybe if Poro matters, he might matter a little bit more. But I think that, yeah, I'll go ahead and give him a 4. Next up is Sky Splitter for 8 energy and 1 red power. It is an action speed spell that reads, this spell's energy cost is reduced by the highest might among units you control. Deal 5 to a unit at a battlefield.
This card has what I think is one of the most broken lines of text that any card in any card game can ever possess, which is free. And it's not always free, but it can be free. So at a baseline, free cards just like they can't ever be like a 1. Like I don't care if it's like just an 0-2 or whatever for 0, that card still has potential. I've seen it a million times before where cards that cost 0 can just get out of hand. Oftentimes, though, I find that cards that cost 0, a lot of the time are just kind of either they are just 3s out of 10 or they're 10s out of 10 because of something else that enables them. And it's rare you find something in the middle. I think this card is pretty well balanced with all that being said. But I do think it's good just because of its ability to be free. And any deck that's just trying to run out bombs, this is going to be premium removal. I'd give this card probably a solid... I'd give this card a solid 7 out of 10. And maybe that's a little high, but just the idea that this can just be played for free and deal 5 damage seems kind of insane to me.
Yeah, I like Sky Splitter a lot. I think that this card... Deal 5 for 8 is obviously very bad, but if you're getting to play this card for free or extremely reduced, then, pay nothing to deal 5 is great. One of the best things about free cards like this is that if you're tapped out, your opponents often will just assume that you have no interaction, and then if they get slammed with a bunch of Sky Splitters out of nowhere, removing their best units, they are often just going to misplay into that, so that automatically gives this card bonus points. Sorry, did you give this card a...
I gave it a 7, but even then, something to add on to that is like, this card doesn't have to be free. It could be 1, it could be 2, it could be 3. All of those are numbers to pay for it that it makes it still an on-rate or better removal spell. So I just think I really like this card.
Yeah, I think 7 is a good number for this card. Next up, we have Captain Ferron for 4 energy and 1 power. He is a 5 might unit that has the text other friendly units here have assault.
not all that great. He doesn't even give all of your units assault, just the ones that he's like attacking with. He's kind of like, he's well statted, so that's the one nice thing I can say about him, but he does cost a power. Ultimately, I don't think this card is that good. He's just like, oftentimes you're not even pushing multiple guys into one point. He's pretty beefy too, where a lot of times he's just going to be able to attack by himself. I give this card probably a 3 out of 10, and I think most of that number is just coming from the fact that he's a 5 might for 4 resources.
Yeah, a 5 that you get to play on turn 2 is pretty strong, but the power holds him back, and his line of text really is not anything. So, just a beat stick. I'll go ahead and give him a 4. No, 4 is probably too high. I'll give him a 3.
There you go.
I thought about it for a second. All right, next up we have Dangerous Duo for 3 energy. This is a 3 might unit that reads Legion. When you play me, give a unit +2 might this turn.
The problem is, like, this card would be just like all right if it didn't have that Legion text, but because it has to be played with something else, this makes it like a more expensive play effectively. Like, I have to play something which probably costs like 2 if it's another unit, or like, I guess I could play, there's a few of those 0 cost gears, but ultimately I don't think this card is that great. He is okay for aggro decks that are trying to play those gears. I'd probably give this guy like a 4 out of 10. He is still like an on-rate body, and he does like pump one of your other guys, so you might be able to push over a point. This is a card that if they had draft, this would like read like a pretty decent draft card to me, but other than that, I think I would give this guy a 4.
Yeah, unless you're doing things to cheat extra resources, you're not going to be able to play very many cards alongside this guy until like turn 3 at best. But it is a 3 for 3. That's worth something. His stats are fine. I'd say a 4 is good for him. Next up, we have our first gear card, Iron Ballista. This is a 3 energy gear. It enters exhausted, and then you can exhaust the card to deal 2 damage to a unit at a battlefield.
It's interesting. It's actually kind of feels a little costly, maybe. Maybe it's properly costed, but it's interesting because when you stack multiple of these, this is going to be a huge hindrance, especially to any sort of like aggro, like weenie type deck, where this kind of just gets to blow a lot of these smaller units out of the water, or out of the sky, no pun intended. So I think this card is decent, and I think it has a place, especially in slower decks that are kind of just trying to control the board. It feels more like a sideboard card that you would side in against weenie aggro decks. Maybe even like more aggressive decks could side this, and they just like if they know they're going to go second, they like take the first turn off to set this up, and this is going to give them a lot of breathing room in, like, say, maybe an aggro mirror. I think this card is actually pretty decent. I give this card a 6 out of 10. Maybe that's a little high. Maybe it's somewhere like in right between 5 and 6 for me.
Yeah, it's somewhere between there for me as well. I agree. Don't have too much more to add. I think that the card is very good. Next up, we have Noxus Saboteur for 3 energy and 3 might. This is a card that reads your opponent's hidden cards can't be revealed here.
This reads like a very niche sideboard card to me, like if you're playing against like Teemo or some sort of hidden deck, and if that deck was ever like one of the better decks that you needed to side against, I can see this card being playable. It's a 3 for 3 on rate, but this almost feels like not quite silver bullet, but it's like it's not quite powerful enough to be a silver bullet, but it is very much kind of edging on that territory to me, where this is just for a very specific deck. Cards like this usually can't ever be just like terrible, because if these decks are ever good, they are just great sides, like I said. So I'll give this card a 5 out of 10, and it's on rate. It's a 3 for 3, so it's not even like awful to just like have at some point. I think this card is like fine. It's just very, very meta dependent.
Yeah, I think I'll give the card a 4. It's, like you said, it's just super niche. The scenarios in which this is going to come up might happen every so often, but right now, hiddens are just probably not doing as much. Next up, we have Raging Soul for 4 energy and 4 might. This card reads, if you've discarded a card this turn, I have Assault and Genki.
I mean, the problem is you have to keep discarding every turn to turn this on. You're not going to use this. You're not going to use the discard thing the turn you play it. So then you have to have another discard enabler, and you kind of have to keep doing that to turn it on. It is a 4/4, and it doesn't cost any power, so it's like relatively on rate. Ultimately, I think this card is like all right, but I don't see it as being great. I'd give this card probably a solid like. I mean, it does get to be kind of big. I give this card like a 5 out of 10, and maybe that's being too generous, but
Yeah, not a big fan of this card. But it is 4/4. We'll give it a 4.
how appropriate.
Next up, we have Scrapyard Champion for 5 energy and 5 might. This has 1 power cost and reads Legion. When you play me, discard 2 and then draw 2.
So when you read this card initially, it reads really well. When you play me, discard 2, draw 2. You even get that draw if you only discard 1 or nothing from hand. We talked before about discard enablers and how good they are and how good they could be. And this is kind of a premium discard enabler because it also replaces that discard. It's a 5/5, it's on rate, but then you see that it's Legion. And that's a huge hiccup here because now you're not actually going to be able to play this on 5 a lot of the time. You're going to have to play it at a higher cost, which makes this card a lot slower and a lot less desirable. And because of that, Legion, I would say this card is, without Legion, is like a 6 out of 10, maybe even could even be pushing like 7. This card is like, reads very well. But with the Legion, I think that's going to drop it all the way down to a 4 for me. I just think having to have an enabler for this effect on something that's already so expensive is just a huge turnoff.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of cards that care about the discard matters stuff, but Legion really just makes this card way too slow. I do think that the fact that if you play a card and then this is like the last card in your hand, you get to draw 2, that's decent. And if you're playing a lot of Legion cards, then maybe you're really running low on hand unless you have ways to somehow be drawing cards while you're playing 2 cards a turn. So this card can kind of refill you, but it's pretty slow. I think those decks typically want to be very aggressive. I think 4 is fine for this card. Next up, we have Sun Disc, which is a gear that costs 2 and 1 power and has Exhaust Legion. The next unit you play this turn enters ready.
This is just another card that reads really well, but is held back by the fact that it has Legion. The ability to give your guys Accelerate without the power cost and giving that to anything is huge. But I think it's held back so much by that Legion, especially when you're trying to do this with maybe a more costly unit where you now have to play something else in the turn. The one nice thing is this card does count itself. So you could be on 5 resources, for example. You could play this, and then you could activate it, and then play a 3, and that unit will enter ready. But again, I think the Legion is holding this back. Now, I do see potential here again with some sort of combo deck that does want to give guys the ability to enter ready. And these combo decks will probably be playing multiple cards in a turn. So I do see where this card has potential and where this effect could be good. And because of that, I'm going to give this card a 5 out of 10. I don't think it's awful. And I even think it has some applications as of right now, even outside of a combo deck and some of the aggro decks that are just trying to play a lot of cheap guys and just trying to get to points fast. I would say solid 5.
Yeah, I think the card is okay. If you start this really early, I think that the power does kind of hold it back a little bit, but if you can start this out and then play like 2 units the next turn and get some value out of it right away, that's pretty great. And just being able to ready things in this game is really strong, especially when you can do it so cheaply. So I like 5. Next up, we have Thermo Beam for 5 energy and 2 power. This is an action speed card that says kill all gear.
Speaking of cards that they absolutely nerfed into the ground from Runeterra, man, it doesn't even do the same thing, but this card was this was another card that was great in Runeterra. Not quite as good as Get Excited, but like this was a premium removal back in the day, and now look how far it's fallen. Kill all gear. This is a silver bullet card.
Yeah, this is a silver bullet.
So I don't want to make it sound like it's terrible. It just, there has to be something very specific for me to want to play a card that says kill all gear, especially for 5 and 2 power. That is very costly. That's what premium removal costs, like real premium unit removal. So this is just like the epitome of a silver bullet for gear decks. I actually don't even like design like this. I don't like silver bullets design wise, but I don't like ones like this where gears kind of feel underpowered as it is to begin with. And then to print something that just wipes them all out. So like a gear deck, if it ever could exist, now it can't exist because there is a card that just wipes them all out, unless you're going to print a gear that says your gears can't be destroyed. And then you're just like, then it's just getting a little too meta gamey for me. So I don't really like this card design wise, but I'm not rating it off that. I would give this card a solid 5 out of 10 just because it's a silver bullet, and at a baseline, cards like these are never usually just terrible because they do prevent a certain aspect of the game from arising, or certain decks from arising.
Yeah, I think 5 is fine for the card. It's so expensive, it's going to take your whole turn. You're going to set yourself back a full turn of channeling. But like Alex said, I mean, it wipes all the gear out. So if we ever do get a deck that's super gear reliant or just all about playing a lot of gears, this card is just going to be a sideboard card for that whenever that deck is viable, and it's just going to blow it out pretty much every time it gets resolved. Next up, we have another 2 energy gear called Unlicensed Armory. This card reads: discard 1 and exhaust it to choose a friendly unit. The next time it dies this turn, you may pay a Fury power to recall it exhausted instead.
So this card does read very well at a baseline. It doesn't cost any resources or energy to use this. It's just a discard, so it is free. And the idea of keeping a guy alive is very good. The problem with this card is that it is not action or reaction speed, so you have to do this preemptively, which kind of holds this card back from its true potential. It can't be used in response to some sort of removal spell or some sort of effect, which is really where you would want something like this, where you'd want an effect like this. And I think that kind of just drops it off for me. Now, where I do see this being good, this is actually a really good combo card because, again, discard enabler. But even further than that, if we're playing a deck that wants to kill guys, so like if I'm playing like a deck that's like just self-unit killing, or like maybe I'm playing something with some sort of combo where I need to keep bringing my guy back, just like running it into danger and bringing it back over and over again, I can see the potential here. It is like still a decent line of text, just the timing on it does not work out well in conjunction. Ultimately, I think I would give this card, this is probably another 5 out of 10 card. I can see the potential here, but I don't think it's that great.
Yeah, I think the card is middle of the road. We do have other cards in the game that are very good, that have this same pretty much second line of text. However, those cards are reactive, and this card is preemptive. So I think that, like Alex said, that's the main thing holding it back. But saving your guys can be really good. Being able to like get double value out of your units, be able to, basically not have to be able to make a trade and get to keep your unit is really powerful. So there will be scenarios in the game where you'll be able to set that up and get a ton of value off this card. And if you're playing this in like a discard matters deck, this is another discard outlet. So it definitely has some potential here and there. It's just kind of niche and a little bit telegraphed. Next up is Void Seeker for 3 energy and 1 fury power. It is an action speed spell that says deal 4 to a unit at a battlefield and draw 1.
That card is juice. My God, that card is just incredible. Premium removal. That's almost as good as it can get. Deal 4. We saw before there was a it was deal 3 to a unit at a battlefield, and if it dies, draw 1. This is just that on crack.
Yeah.
This costs 1 less, the same amount of power, and it draws regardless of whether or not you kill it. This card is just absolutely incredible. Premium removal. I don't think there's much else to say about it other than that. This kind of just like takes all the other removal spells we've seen so far for the most part and just throws them all in the trash. This is it. Like, this is one of the best you can get. I give this card a 9 out of 10. It's just incredible.
Yeah, cantrips are always great, and cantrips that remove a card from your opponent's board are always 2-for-1s. So yeah, you can never get enough 2-for-1s. This is a 3-mana 2-for-1. It's a great card. I would go ahead and give it probably give this card like an 8. Next up we have Blind Fury. This is a 4 energy spell that costs 2 Fury power, says action. And each opponent reveals the top card of their main deck. Choose one and play it, ignoring its cost, then recycle the rest.
This is like a fun RNG card, I guess. Like, this really reads to me like a casual card. Now, granted, there might be a way where you can stack your opponent's deck at some point, or like maybe it's a weird sideboard where like there is a deck that tries to stack something on top of their deck and do something with it. But again, it's action, not reaction, so you never really get the chance to play it unless they want you to. I mean, this is like a funny haha gotcha card, but ultimately I think this is like high roll RNG type stuff. And the floor is really low. Like, you could just play this and get like a Poro or like some other like weenie unit or spell. Ultimately, I don't think this card is very good. I will say, and this is just based on 1v1 format, but I will say this does probably gets a lot better in like the commander type formats, the 4v4s, because you get to look at a card from each player's deck and choose one. But I'm not rating it based on that, so I will give this card probably a 3 out of 10.
Yeah, I think, like you said, this seems like they made this for multiplayer so that it gets a little more value there. Otherwise, unless we see stacking, this card is just way too inconsistent, costs a ton of power. I'm pretty low on it. I'm going to give it a 2. I'm going to butcher this name. I was like, Bryn here. Bryn here, Thunder Song. For 6 energy, this is a 5-mana unit that says, when you play me, opponents can't play cards this turn.
I mean, this is another like combo enabler where you play this and then like you get to just like combo off without being interrupted. The problem with it is it costs 6, and that doesn't relieve you a lot of breathing room to try to combo off with whatever you're trying to do uninterrupted. The best I see this card being is sideboard. Like, again, this has potential. It does effectively shut off your opponent for the rest of the turn. So if you're just trying to do something uninteracted, I can see where it's good there. I can see maybe on final push turns where you're just like, all right, I'm going to win the game. This is good. But like, this costs 6 and it doesn't come in readied. It doesn't do anything else. So you're effectively paying 6 on the turn you might be trying to win the game to do nothing but just turn off their ability to react. They can also still react to the when played aspect of this. So if they do have pumps, they can just play them preemptively, sort of, just so they don't get shut off for the turn. I don't think this card is very good. I do see the potential, but not enough where I've seen the potential in a lot of these other cards that aren't great but could be right now. I give this card a solid 4 out of 10.
Yeah, I think it's a little understated. At least it does not cost a power. And I think that if you have ways to get a ton of additional resources, or like untap all of your resources, or some other way to cheat the mana system, then a card like this can be enabled to do crazy things uninterrupted. But until we see more stuff like that, I think the card, I'll give it a 5. Next up we have Darius Trefarian. This is a 5 energy, 1 power card with 5 might that says, when you play your second card in a turn, give me +2 might and ready me.
Absolutely solid. This guy's really, really good. One of the premier, accelerate, enters ready type guys. Just incredible, especially in his own deck. I mean, this guy reads just so well. He does effectively have Legion, but he does count himself, as I understand it. So when you play it, if you already played a card, he'll actually he'll end up readying himself. He even does that the turn after he's played too, though. So if you end up playing a second card afterwards, you can ready him again so he can attack, and then maybe the next turn he untaps, he can retreat himself, and then you play two things, and then he can attack again. Just like, this guy is just solid. He's one of the biggest guys that you can have that enters when readied. I give this guy a solid 8 out of 10. He's a powerhouse.
Yeah, I think like you mentioned, if you get to actually play the Darius Legend, you get to start with this guy and just have him threatened all the time. So he's really scary in Darius, but he's pretty much going to see a home in most red decks. We already saw the card Cleave, which is just perfect to make this card a 10 on your turn, which is basically going to take over any battlefield and wipe out whatever units are there. He's just really, really strong, 5 for 7. I mean, he's obviously 5 for 5, but most of the time you're going to trigger that effect and make him a 5 for 7. And being able to basically have pseudo ganking, this card is just everything you want in an aggressive strategy. I'm going to go ahead and give him an 8. Next up, we have Draven, a 5 energy, 1 power card with 3 might that says, "My might is increased by your points."
This guy's interesting. He doesn't do anything immediately. He's a little costly, 5. He does have good power stats. I can see where, like, if you have a way to cheat him out, he gets a little bit better. I think this guy's actually decent, especially once you get to that, like, it's really easy, especially if you're in an aggro deck, to get 4, 5, 6 points, and then he just becomes like a massive, massive beat stick. I like this guy. I don't think he's insane by any means, because he is a little on the slower side a lot of the times. Even in the late game, when you do have 5 or 6 points, playing this guy and just doing nothing for 5, that's going to be like a lot of your turn. He does cost a power. I give this guy a solid 6 out of 10. He's good. I like him, but he's not incredible by any means.
Yeah, I think 6 is good for Draven. Best case scenario is you're going to have 5 or 6 points and hopefully have taken a point that turn, and you'll be able to drop him on the battlefield so that he can just be really huge and obnoxious to go over and basically lock up the game. But otherwise, if you're behind, this guy is going to suck. I'll go ahead and give Draven a 6. Next up, we have Falling Star. For 2 energy and 2 power, it is a spell that says, "Do this twice. Deal 3 to a unit. You can choose different units."
The ultimate spell in terms of attack and defense. This card is fucking broken. Holy shit. This card is just absolutely incredible. I was talking about how good Void Seeker was and gassing that up like crazy. Well, this is twice the spell that Void Seeker is, almost quite literally. This card is just fucking incredible. I don't know what else to say about it. It is just so good. Deal 3 twice. So let's talk about all the upsides. This is probably the card I'm going to spend the most time talking about. So you get to deal 3. You get to deal 3 damage to a unit twice. That doesn't have any restriction on it. Unlike every other removal spell pretty much we've seen in this color, they don't have to be at a battlefield. So you can hit guys that are at their base, which just makes this card already through the roof. You don't have to choose the targets when you cast this. So you can change them. So when your opponent's reacting to this, they have no idea what you're actually targeting. So if they want to play a buff and they have multiple units, they buff one, you just hit the other one. Now, on top of that, this card doesn't say hit 2 different units. It just says do this twice. So if you want to, you can deal 3 to 2 different units or 6 to 1 single unit. This card is premium. This is probably top 5 cards in the game. It might even be the best card in the game. It's just absolutely broken. It only costs 2. So you're effectively getting 2 of that Hextech Ray in 1 card. That's what this is just 2 Hextech Rays shoved together, but now it only costs you 1 card, and it doesn't target like Hextech Ray. Now, the one downside is that it is action speed, or it's not action speed, sorry. It is just a regular spell. You can only use it on your turn. So that is the only thing that, like, I don't even want to say holds it back. Like, it's just like one downside to this spell, but I think this card is absolutely cracked. It does cost 2 power, but I think that's so measly for a card like this. I think this is premium removal. I give this card a 10 out of 10. I think it's one of the best cards in the game right now. I mean, man, oh man, this card is just insane.
Yeah, I think 10, this is going to be solid 10s from everyone around. This card is crazy. The fact that it just limits like so many decks. The whole format kind of is just warping around this card right now. Obviously, we're trying to, review this in a vacuum, but anyone who's played against this card so far knows how powerful it is. Most things in this game, even things that cost like 4, so basically the thing that you play on your first turn plus whatever you're playing your next turn, are in the 3 might range. And so this thing just like it sets your opponent back for their first 2 turns and takes their entire board away. There's nothing they can really do to play around it because it hits base. The card is just insane. If you play it in something like Kaisa, then it doesn't even set you back a turn of channeling in Kaisa. So yeah, the card is just super crazy. Every red deck is probably going to be playing this. Even the slower red decks or the decks that don't really want to be sending back their lands, it's just too good to not play in some amount. Next up, we have Champion Jinx. This is a 3 energy, 1 power unit for 4 that has Accelerate and Assault 2, and when you play her, discard 2.
So this is a fairly solid Accelerate unit. The one downside is that when you do Accelerate it, because she naturally costs a power, it's also going to cost you another power. So it'll be a 4 for 2 power. You do have to discard 2, but again, we talked about how discard enablers can be a good thing. She punches for 6, which is a lot. A 3 for 4, that's very well statted to begin with. And then you throw in the Accelerate, you throw in the +2 Assault, and you've got a pretty solid unit here. Again, she does have to discard 2, but if you don't have anything or you only have 1, it's not a requirement to play her. I think this card, because of the Accelerate text, is very good. Albeit it's not as good as, say, Darius, but still solid. I give this card probably a solid 7 out of 10. Maybe that's a little high because of the discard cost, but I really do like this card.
Yeah, I think that the discard cost does hold this back from being good outside of a few other decks. I'm probably going to give it a 6 myself, but I do think that an Accelerate unit that just costs 4, you could pay 4 and accelerate this in and hit something for 6 on a battlefield, or basically just conquer any battlefield, especially early game, like on the second turn of the game. If you're being that aggressive, nothing's really hitting 6 that early in the game, so she's going to be able to run over whatever battlefield you want. You just definitely want to be playing this in a discard matters deck to make the discard 2 not hurt as bad. Alright, next up we have Raging Firebrand for 6 energy and a power. This card has 4 might and reads, when you play me, the next spell you play this turn costs 5 less.
Not really a fan. It's very understated. It's a 4 for 6. Like, I get you get to play a spell that costs 5, but as we've seen, especially in this color, there aren't a whole lot of those. Like, you're not going to be able to maximize what you actually spend. A lot of the time, a lot of the spells in this color are a lot cheaper, and they're not, even the more expensive ones aren't that great as we've seen. Maybe if there's some sort of combo where you need to play a creature, like it works with like Legion spells, maybe. I don't really like this card. I don't see where it could be all that great. Like, maybe there's some enabler with some spell later on, but even the potential there seems low to me. I'm like trying to stretch my imagination, and there's got to be something like really very specific going on for this to be good. I'm going to give this card a 3 out of 10. I just don't think it's good.
Yeah, I think it has some potential if we have some spells that have Legion. I don't think there's a lot of those, at least in this first set. I think I'll go ahead and give him a 4. Next up we have Ravenborn Tome. This is a 3 energy gear that vests itself, and then the next spell you play deals 1 bonus damage.
This card is not very good. This card is quite bad in my opinion. I don't even know, even Annie, at the very least, Annie makes a body that you can use, and it does it for every spell you play. this is only the next one and it only works once per turn. Like, if this card was just like, if this card was Annie without the body, it would be okay. Like, actually, if this card was Annie without the body, it'd probably even be good. Like, there probably even might be, like, I could see a reason why Kaisa might even consider playing this just to... Actually, Kaisa might be really good, in fact. But the way it is right now, I do not see the merit of this card. This is 3. This is quite costly. Maybe if it was 2. Like, I think this card is quite bad. Again, it's also a gear too, so like if like maybe there's some merit where you can stack multiple of these, but then again you're vulnerable to things like the gear removal we saw, the thermogenic gear removal card we saw. I don't see it here. This might be a little harsh, but I'm going to give this card a 2. I just don't think this card is good at all.
Hayton. No,
this is bad. This is real bad.
I do think that this card costs too much. I don't think that this card's going to see play. Maybe if we see some changes in the game later and things slow down a lot and you have some crazy spell slinger control type deck, this might be something, but I think that we just have better options, so I'll go ahead and give it a 3.
I think if you see, to add on, I think if you see, like, if we have a deck that's playing a lot of AoE, maybe this has some merit, but even at 3, that's a big cost for something like this. I don't see it.
Next up, we have Shakedown for 2 energy and 1 power. This is a spell at reaction speed, which is that you can play it at any time, even before spells and abilities resolve. You can choose an enemy unit, deal 6 to it, unless its controller has you draw 2.
I actually really like these types of cards. Oftentimes they're not all that great because usually your opponent, when you give your opponent the option, they just give you whatever the worst one is. But this one's almost cheap enough that it's like kind of okay to just draw 2. Like, you just like play this, and like a lot of the times they're just going to let you draw 2. And at the very worst, it's like the most premium on-rate removal you can ask for. It's hard, like, it's kind of hard for me to evaluate, honestly. Just as a player, I don't like cards that give my opponent the choice of what they want me to do. But I like these cards design wise. Like, I think they're cool. I don't know, maybe 5 out of 10. I really can't evaluate this one. This one's hard for me because to get 2 to draw 2 is pretty good, even for a power. It's also reaction, which we don't actually see on a lot of potential removal-based spells. So it does have that upside of, if your opponent tries to place a pump on a guy to make it survive, you can actually react with this, and they'll probably still just let you draw 2, but at least you're guaranteeing the draw 2. So I have a really hard time evaluating this card, to be honest.
So 5? Are we settling on 5?
5, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we'll settle for a 5 here. I don't know. I really can't tell you. I'm going to play it safe, though.
Yeah, I think, like you said, the card just allows your opponent to usually make you draw 2. Most of the time, that's all that's going to happen. Your opponent's not going to let you deal 6 to, like, their 6 might unit with this thing. Unless maybe you're already swimming in cards or something, and for some reason they don't care. It does hit things at home. It is reaction speed. Those things are crazy. Like, paying 2 to deal 6 to something at base is crazy. But, your opponent's just not going to let it happen when it actually matters. So it's most of the time just going to be a draw 2, which is still okay. I think we'll give it a 6. Next up, we have Tryndamere. This is a 7 energy, 8 might unit for 2 power that reads, when I conquer after an attack, if you assign 5 or more excess damage to enemy units, you score 1 point.
So this is the first card we've seen like this that actually scores a point outside of just the regular game mechanics. And it's a really interesting card. I like cards like these, and I think they should exist. I don't know if this guy is moving the needle power-wise for this sort of effect. He's all right. Like, 2 powers, a little steep, but he's decently sized. He's an 8 for 7. He's kind of slow, though. He doesn't do anything when he comes in play. Again, this is another thing that I can see out of some sort of maybe like combo-based deck where they're just like playing him and trying to like just gain extra points in the turn and win real fast. Ultimately, he is kind of slow, and I'm not a big fan of him, but I do like his effects. I do have a sweet spot for these like fake alternative win cons, I guess. I'll give him a 4.
Yeah, I think that the it is noteworthy of note as well that in this game, there's only specific ways that you can take the final point, but these effects like this can actually win you the game. So there are different board states and things like that where you might not be able to take one battlefield and you're just able to consistently conquer at the other one and you're not able to get that final point. But Trendemir actually can get you the final point. 7 is pretty decent for him. For 8, I mean, that's a good rate, but you are sending back 2 power. If there's a way that you can consistently be, assigning 5 more additional damage and scoring additional points with this guy, then you're going to win the game really quickly. It's just, I'm not sure how often you're going to be able to do that. I think I'll give him a 5. Next up, we have Vayne for 4 energy and a power. She is a 2 might unit that has Assault 3. And if your opponent controls a battlefield, I enter ready. When I conquer, you can pay 1 energy to return me to my owner's hand.
An interesting aggro card. It even plays like kind of neatly into some of the more control decks. So you do have like the chance to eject, or like any deck that that's going to just swing back and kill this. It can just like kind of keep popping back in and like trolling the battlefield a little bit. Now that does cost you about 5, which is a little expensive, but it's also very big. So this card is interesting. I like it. It's just another kind of pseudo accelerate unit. I like it. I think it's good. It's just a little too costly, but I can see where the applications are. I'll give this card a 6. I like it. I think it's like a 6.
I am a fan of Vayne, especially flavor-wise in the League of Legends game. Vayne, she is all about like rolling. She's very mobile and she's constantly rolling back and like shooting and rolling back. So like the thematic, when she hits them for a point, then she gets to like return to the hand, is kind of like her, getting in, doing damage, and then rolling back out of danger's way. I think that's cool thematically. I think that 4 for 5, basically 4 for 5 haste is pretty solid. Does cost a power, but a lot of the times you can take over battlefields, you can score points that way, and it does a lot of things that red wants to be doing. I think I'll give this card a 7. Next up, we have Vi, the 2 energy champion, 1 power, and 3 might. She has ganking, and you can recycle 1 card in your trash to give her +1 might for the turn.
This card's solid. I mean, this is like probably one of the best 2s in the game. I mean, just like, it's already a 3 for 2, which is like way above rate. Like that's just incredible stats to start with. Now it does cost a power, but for those stats, I would say it's worth it. But then you also have the upside of, not only does it just have ganking, which is like, okay, if this was a 3 for 2 with ganking, it would just be solid. Like even at a power cost, that would be a very good 2-drop. But now it also has this ability where towards the end of the game or even in the mid game, you can make her even larger than she is naturally. I think this card is solid. I think it's probably close to the best 2-drop in the game. There's just so many applications for this. There's a few combos that I'll probably discuss later on in one of our other videos, but I'd give this card a solid 8 out of 10. This is a very good 2-drop, about as impactful as you could ask for a 2-drop to be.
Yeah, I love 2 for 3. That's a great stat line. The power does, hold it back a little bit. You don't want to play this super early. Usually you want to wait till you have some cards in your trash, but you don't even feel horrible playing it early because it is going to run over most other early game plays and trade into pretty much every early game play at worst. So plus if it has ganking, that means you can, if your opponent can't deal with it and you play it early enough and get on the one battlefield, you can then take the other battlefield, score a lot of early points. I think Vi's just a really powerful card. I like 8 for her. Next up, we have Immortal Phoenix for 3 energy. This is a 3 might unit, costs 1 power, has Assault 2, and when you kill a unit with a spell, you may pay 1 energy and 1 power to play this from your trash.
I mean, I love recurring guys like this. This is a great line of text. It is not super costly. Like a power and 1 energy is that's reasonable for something like this. You do have to play it in a deck with a lot of spells, so that is one thing. The spells can't be tapping you out, and you have to be comfortable with paying the power. And a lot of these good removal spells we've seen already make you pay a power, so that is something to consider, how much power you actually want to be playing in a turn. But again, this is something that does work with the discard synergy, like we talked about. You're able to put this in the trash with one of your discards and then keep getting it back. It also would work with any sort of, like, if you have something to kill your own unit synergy. I mean, this line of text is just at a very baseline, pretty solid, just without knowing anything else that's going on in the game. This type of text is always going to be abusable at one point or another in a game's lifespan. I'm going to give this card a solid 7 out of 10, and I think that has the potential to be a lot higher too.
Yeah, someone in the design team, they're all a bunch of Magic pros, so someone clearly liked Arc Light Phoenix and wanted to bring it into Riftbound. And I think that this card, even though we haven't seen it do a lot in the early format so far, I do think that at some point a recurable unit that just can keep coming back over and over with solid stat line is always going to be good. I like giving this a 7 as well. Next up, we have Kadrigan the Infernal for 9 energy and 2 power. This is a 9 might unit that reads, when you play me, draw 1 for each of your mighty units. And for reference, a mighty unit is the unit with 5 or more might.
It's fine. It's a good way to refill in a bomb deck. Any of the decks that might like just be trying to slam bomb after bomb or ramp into this. This card's fine. It's big. It's a 9 for 9, so it's on rate. Costs 2 power. That's about what I'd expect from a 9 drop. I mean, you already have 9 in place at least, so it's like fine. He does count himself too, so you're automatically just getting 1 draw from playing him. I think this is like fine, but it's a little bit win more, because I feel like a lot of the time when you have if you have multiple bombs or you're drawing like 3-4 cards with this, you're probably winning the game. I'd like to hope at least. He does synergize very well with that the Volibear removal. I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but the one that is gets reduced cost for might, because you are going to have all these bombs, and then you're going to kind of draw up and fuel for that. But just based on his text alone, not even factoring that in, I'd say this card's like a 4.
Like Alex said, I mean, it's a 9 for 9 that draws a card. That's not horrible. But this is a game of tempo. 9 is quite a bit. Once you start playing the game, you'll see that points are scored pretty quickly, and by the time that this guy's coming down, not doing anything immediately impactful, it kind of hurts. He doesn't come in readied or anything. He does cost a lot, so I think that he's a decent card. He definitely matters in the Bomb Matters decks. You're gonna like to see that guy, but I'd say I'll give him a 5. Next up, we have Kaisa, Survivor. This is a 4 energy unit with 4 might that has Accelerate, and when I conquer, draw 1.
So amongst Accelerate units, this might be close to the best. It's giving Darius a run for his money. I mean, this card's incredible. So it's effectively a 4 for 4, which is on rate, or it can be a 5 for 4 with Accelerate. And you're almost certainly going to conquer. A 4 is big enough that even if your opponent's contesting both points, chances are you're going to be able to get over one of them naturally. It's also a Kaisa champion, so it is a card that is going to synergize very well in the Kaisa deck, as you can just start with 1 automatically. I think this card is very solid. The ability to draw and just like almost a pseudo draw engine, and replaces itself when it does have the Accelerate. I'm going to give this card probably an 8 out of 10. Like, maybe 9 feels like it's pushing it a little bit. I know I gave Void Seeker 9, and maybe this card is on the same power level, but I'm going to give it an 8, a solid 8.
Yeah, I think Kaisa is definitely one of the best units in the game. 4 for 4, no power cost. The no power cost is really the craziest thing. I mean, if you accelerate this, it does have a power cost, but if not, you could just play this on your second turn of the game and keep on chugging. You're up to 6 the next turn and you haven't spent any power yet. That's really great. Drawing cards is really hard to do in this color, and Kaisa makes it a lot easier to do. You could play 3 of this, and if you're Kaisa, you get to start with this in play at the start of the game, which is just insane for her. I think I'm really high on this card. I'm gonna go ahead and give it a 9. I might be sweet on her a little bit, but I do think that this is one of the best units in the game. Next up, we have Seal of Rage. This is a 0 energy gear, costs 1 power, and it has reaction. You can add a power.
So every color has one of these. And the first thing you think when you see this is, if you play Magic the Gathering, you're like, oh my god, it's a Mox. But it's not actually. It only gets power, doesn't generate energy, which a lot of the times the energy is actually more important. It does have that magic number 0. So to baseline, I think these cards, like I said, at a baseline, these cards are probably only a 3 at the worst. And I know I said there's no in between, but this is probably one of those cards that is somewhere in between. Now, this can enable a lot of stuff, and I can see where these cards can get out of hand very, very fast with different like early game combo enablers that might cost a lot of power and be unfeasible otherwise. But all of a sudden you crank out a seal or 2, and now this combo is actually very consistent, or it does pop off. Again, 0, it still makes a like form of mana or power, resources, energy, whatever you want to call it. So it is still decent. I think though, because I think the biggest thing holding these cards back is that you want to see them really early, and when you don't open them in your opening hand, they're kind of just a lot worse. They're kind of dead draws in the late game, and honestly, they're very, very bad, and I think that's one of the risks to running a card like this. I'm going to say this card is a 5 out of 10, and I'm just going to tell you in advance that every other seal, because they all read the same, I'm not even taking into consideration the color they're in. They all read the same to me. They're all going to be 5 out of 10s for me.
Yeah, I'm going to give the card a 5 as well. This card is going to be great in like Legion decks, or decks that want to get rid of cards from their hand really quickly. It might get some bonus points in decks like those, but on average, because of how bad of a top deck these are in the late game, this card does not do anything, and you're not going to get much value out of it going forward if you're drawing it super late. I think that's the main thing that holds these cards back. If we had a 0 energy card that gave you an energy every turn for the rest of the game, that might be something, but power is not quite the same, and especially when you get them in the late game. Next up, we have Volibear Champion. This is a 10 energy, 9 might unit for 2 power, and has deflect 2, and when I attack, deal 5 damage split among any number of enemy units here.
Raw. And he's a big boy. This is like a Timmy card if I've ever seen one. He's big, he's mean, he's scary. He's got a whole bunch of text and a whole bunch of stats on him. He's just a big boy. A 9 for 10, which you'd imagine at 10, like you could just have any number you wanted on there, but not quite. So he's got deflect 2, so he's like, even if you're going to try to kill this guy, you better sure as hell do it with just one spell, because otherwise you're going to end up losing a whole bunch of power to take him out. And there aren't too many spells that actually kill this guy solo. So do expect that if your opponent is trying to kill this, they're probably going to lose at least 4 power to do so. And then when he attacks, he deals 5 damage split amongst any number of enemy units here. So just in case his 9 strength wasn't good enough to fight his way through the point, now he gets to deal 5 and maybe take out a unit or 2 on his way into the point. The problem with a card like this is, well, 1, it costs 10. And cards that cost 10 have to literally pretty much say you win the game. Like, this guy doesn't do anything when he comes in play, so he's very slow for his cost. He has no impact on the board immediately, he doesn't draw you cards. He's just very, very slow for his cost. And while he is hard to kill and he's probably going to get an attack off, he doesn't even do enough. Like we talked about, most people aren't just throwing a bunch of guys in the point. So like, there's only going to be one guy contesting him a lot of the time anyways, especially when they see this, they get a whole turn to retreat their guys. They're not going to leave their whole board in a point just for this guy to gobble up. So I don't think this card is very good, to be honest. As cool as he looks, his big stats, all his text lines, I really don't see this card being all that great. He's maybe a somewhat effective finisher, but I feel like you have to be in a pretty good position to even warrant being able to cast something like this. I'm going to give him a 4 out of 10. I really don't think this guy is very good. He's just like a big flashy bomb and not the good kind.
Yeah, I think this card is too slow. If you're Volibear, you get to start with this in your hand all the time, basically, which is kind of cool. But outside of Volibear, I don't think this card is ever gonna really hit any boards unless the format slows down a lot, or we get ways to produce more resources and cheat these guys in. And even then, because he doesn't come in readied, it's gonna be, unless you already have a magma worm or something out like we saw earlier, it's gonna take multiple turns to get value out of this guy. I think that he is a cool Timmy card. My inner Timmy wants to play this guy all day, but he's not that great. I'd say 4 is fine for him. That is it for the Fury portion of our Riftbound Origins set review. Let us know if you disagree with us. Let us know if you guys think we're way off base in the comments. We will be back with part 2 soon. Look out for the full set review. Like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Later.